Greetings and salutations. Thanks for hanging out with me for a little while. In this video, we're going to talk about bash scripts. I want to talk about getting an update. I want to talk about the bash scripts that I have available for you to download from GitHub and some of the other things that are available at the EzeeLinux website. And I want to talk just a bit about how easy it is to actually create scripts and put them to work for you, because it is a very powerful tool that you can use on your Linux system to do some pretty awesome things. Now, before we get into all of that, first of all, let me say that some of you who have been following the channel for a long time probably are going to think this video is old news because I've covered all of this in the past. But do keep in mind that this channel is growing by leaps and bounds. And probably the last time that I talked about we had maybe 30,000 subscribers, when we're pushing 75,000 as of the time this video is being recorded. So there's a lot of folks out there that don't even know any of this stuff exists, you know. Also, I want to kind of editorialize for just a moment before we jump into things, because I posted a video not too long ago, just a few days ago, talking about the Linux distributions and the applications that I use to get things done. And in the first part of that video, I go into a lot of the applications that I use in a terminal to get things done. I do a lot of what I do by hitting alternate control and T and opening up a terminal and typing in a command. And that is because I am very used to doing that and I am good at it. And there are those who watched that video who posted comments along the lines of, well, if this is what Linux is all about, typing in a terminal, then I'm not interested. Now, in the title of that video, I didn't say this is what you can do with Linux. I said this is how I use Linux. And I pointed that out to those folks who posted those comments. Other people posted comments where they were not particularly in that video, but videos I've done like this in the past where they have said, you shouldn't be showing people how to do things in a terminal, either because they feel it will scare new users away from Linux, or they themselves feel like that no one should have to use a terminal to interact with a computer. Some people get very upset about this. As a matter of fact, when I posted the announcement about the new up version being released, the very first comment that I got on Facebook this morning was from somebody that said, oh, I'm not interested in that garbage. I'll come back when there's a GUI. I'm too old to screw around with the command line, something like that. Very nasty comment. I was like, well, it was just not nice. It wasn't necessarily nasty. And it just really points out this negativity that is directed toward bash. And it makes me very sad, actually, and a little bit angry that is going on, both within and outside of the community, because it displays a level of ignorance that's actually alarming to me. Now, those who say that you have to use a terminal to use Linux, that's not true. You can use Linux Mint. You can use Ubuntu Mate. Those distributions are all point and click. You never have to open a terminal. But with that said, if you're going to use Linux, I really think it's important that you have a nodding acquaintance with the shell, the bash shell. Bash is a shell that runs in a terminal. That's what it is. I always get in trouble because people say, hey man, you call it a bash terminal. It's not what it is. It's a shell running in a terminal. Whatever. Whatever it takes to get people's attention. I don't care. But I really think you ought to have a nodding acquaintance with what's going on and how to navigate, because it is so important to Linux. All Linux that runs on a server, a desktop, it doesn't make any difference. A lot of the times when you go to a forum and you seek help, you are going to be given commands to run. It's the easiest way for me to tell you how to fix a problem. You see, it gets very confusing when you give people instructions and you say, open this application and point and click on this box and whatever. Whereas if I can just give you some commands to copy and paste into a terminal that will fix your problem, I'm going to do it. It's the easiest way to go. So the more you know, the more power you have. And it's actually not that hard to use a terminal. Once you get the very basics down, the rest of it is you can look up, or it's kind of intuitive. You can learn it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the description for this video a link to another video that I did called Beginner's Guide to the Bash Terminal. And that video is generally very well accepted. And the only part of it that I kind of shaky on myself is when I get up to talking about setting permissions on files, because I was trying to explain that we're only worried about the digits 1 through 7 in the 8-bit thing, the octal bit. Forget it. Just, if that helps you, great. If not, whatever. It's not that it's inaccurate, but it's just kind of poorly explained. Other than that, I'm very proud of that video, and you can check that out. So, with all of that said, I hope you're still going to hang with me. Even if you don't know a great deal about scripts, I'm going to show you how to write a basic script in this video. We'll talk about what a script is, and then we're going to get into looking at some of the tools that I use that in the terminal and that I have made available to other people. So first of all, let's talk about what got me started on this, and that was the fact that early this morning I decided that I was going to actually do an update to up. And you're probably going, well, what the hell is up? It is a little script. It's ridiculously simple. It's a program that I wrote. I don't know when I wrote up. It says here January 2018, so it's about a year ago now. And mainly I wrote this to do a video to explain a bit about bash scripts. So let's just kind of roll through a little bit and talk about what makes up tick. Those of you who have a little bit of experience working in the terminal are probably familiar with the commands that you use to update a Debian or Ubuntu system. And the idea here was to create an automated script where you could just type in up and then the update would happen. This was also a way to show how functions work. I think I've already mentioned that. So this is actually written in a top-down way of writing for a bash script. See, one of the beautiful things about working in bash is not only is it a command interpreter that takes commands that you put in and fires off other programs or gives you some sort of output on the screen, it also has its own programming language built in. So you can do some really sophisticated programming. And toward the end of the video, I'm going to show you some of that, but we'll keep it simple. The main thing here is that what I want you to take away from what I'm talking about is that we have these commands here, sudo apt update, sudo apt dist upgrade, and then YY. Now, some of the people who have seen up and some of the other commands where I have YY associated with the apt or apt get command, they'll go, why are you doing that? There's some documentation somewhere that I can't lay my hands on now that I came across a long time ago that said if you put YY in there, it ensures that the command will execute even if there's an error. So even if it asks you twice, do you really want to do this? It'll do it, which is the way I have this written. And then up comes in two parts. You can update your system or you can clean up your system as well. So we have a function in here, and a function basically is like creating your own command. You can take your own commands, put them all in a block, and then they become a command which is run from inside the program. So what happens is that we set this first function called update, and it displays on the screen with echo this line right here that it says, okay, we're doing this now. So it displays that on the screen, and then it updates your apt cache, and then it does actually install the updates, all of them. And that's what that function does. The next function is clean, which basically tells apt to auto-remove any old programs and clear the cache of anything that you can't actually restore anymore. So that's what those two commands do. And then we have a command that basically, this is another function here that tells the system how to exit. So when the program is actually run, what's going on is it starts reading down through here, and then of course all of this, the first thing that this top line does is it tells the system, hey, this is a program that's written for bash. That's what this shebang does up at the top. We'll talk more about him in a little while. Then these are comments, and they all start with the little pound sign, hashtag, whatever you want to call that. And then the first command that it actually runs is set E. Essentially what that command does is that if at any point during this script an error happens anywhere, it will just stop running. It won't continue because it's updates and it's dangerous if it does, okay? So then we go down, and the next thing we do is declare our functions, and I've already gone through those. So once we have the functions declared, and all they get is like loaded up into memory, then we got more functions here. Here's the help page, and then we get down to the execution. So when the program runs, it actually reads all of this stuff, and it puts it in memory. And then the first thing that it does is it has a little line here saying that the program is actually running. And then what it does is it looks for the clean option, which will run update, clean, and leave, which are those functions that we just looked at. And if you put the help option, then it'll run the help, which just basically prints a very simple help page on the screen. And then if you don't put in a correct argument and it doesn't know what it is, then it gives you this output right here. It throws an error and it says, I don't know what you're talking about. And if you just type in up, and it just runs the update script, and then it leaves, and leaving exits the script. That's it. That's how this works. It's really super, super simple. But like I said, it illustrates functions, which is the reason why I did it. Now, the update that up got was kind of bittersweet, because what I did here is I changed it from using the apt-get command, which is an older command that you use to manipulate the apt package manager in Debian and Ubuntu. I changed that from apt-get to apt. And the only reason that this software used apt-get to begin with was backwards compatibility with Ubuntu 14.04 and Linux Mint 17 series. Well, guess what? In about 2 or 3 weeks here, the Ubuntu 14.04 and Linux Mint 17.3, they're going to be retired, so we can move forward a little bit and use apt, and that gives the program a few more nicer displays while it's running, and you get a progress bar at the bottom and all that kind of stuff. So this will work on Ubuntu 18.04 and up, but it's not going to work on, well, I mean, I don't know how far. Yeah, 18.04 is the oldest one that it'll work on at this point, which is fine. So those who have Ubuntu 14.04 that they're running to the very end, if you actually installed up, don't upgrade, because it'll quit working for you if you do that. So anyway, that's what prompted this me to go and actually start talking about this a little bit and show you guys around. So let us, before I show you the other tools, how about we create our own script? We talk about working a little bit. I'll give you a little tutorial here in the middle of the video, just to show you how this works. Now, what is a script? A script is a list of commands. It basically starts out as a text file. We put a bunch of commands in it, and then we turn that bunch of commands into a program on its own. So you can see how powerful this is. So let's say that there's something that you do on a regular basis that requires you to run 5 commands in a row. Well, if you do that all the time, you can turn that into your own little command, and they'll all run at once. That's the point of a bash script. So a bash script can be anything from 1 or 2 lines that make your life simpler, or they can be full-fledged programs. Anything in between is perfectly all right. So I'm in my work directory on my computer, which is basically where I always do projects like this and create files to work with. So that's where we're going to work. And I'm going to use Nano as my editor to show you how to do this. And let us actually, let's do this, because I noticed that we are seeing the up script from behind there. So I'm going to move that to another desktop so that we have just a little bit of the Ubuntu thing showing in the background. I think that's pretty classy. So the first thing that you start a script out with is the shebang. And the shebang is what we were looking at in up right here. And what it basically does is it tells the system, hey, this is a program, And this program needs to run with the bash interpreter. So we put the hashtag, and then we tell it where to go find the shell that we want to run it in, which is bash. That's it. Now, you can have scripts that actually run in other languages besides bash. I mean, you could have it run in Python, for instance. They start in a very similar way. It just tells the system, hey, go find the Python shell to run this in. But we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. So we can put just a real simple command in here. We'll use the echo command. And what the echo command is, it prints on the screen. Well, let's do this. First of all, let's clear the screen. So we'll clear it first. Okay? And that will just clear everything off. And then the next command we put in is echo. And we'll do the traditional hello world. Like so. And then I always like to end my scripts with exit, even though you really don't have to. So I put that in there. And we don't need that space there, so we can take that extra line out. Now, when you are building scripts, one of the things that's very important is to put lots of notes in your scripts. So you first of all might want to put up front script to print hello world on the screen. Okay, and if I'm committing all sorts of typo sins here, don't worry about it. This is just for illustration. So you can do this. You can actually comment on your commands in one of two ways. You can write above it. Okay, so you could say right here, you could put a line in, and you could say clear the screen. All right, and that would say this is what this command does down here. That's one way of doing it, and it's usually the way that I actually notate scripts. I always put that above there just because it makes sense to me. But you can also stick your comment after the command, like this. Okay, well, we can fix that. You know, clear screen. What is all this crap going on? Work with me, work with me. There we go. So you can do it that way too, and that will actually run. And when it gets to where that little hash mark is, or whatever you want to call that, pound sign, then it will stop reading the command. So I tend to like to do it the other way. So let's go ahead and notate our script. I just clear screen right here. And I like to leave a space between the notes. Always leave lots of space in your scripts when you're writing them, because when you go back and you try and read them later, if you have everything all compacted together, what happens is that it makes it hard to figure out what's going on. So the next command we'll just notate everything. Let's just notate everything before we go on to the next step. So echo the text right there, right? Get down here, put a line in there. Okay, and we need another line there, and then we will exit the program. Okay, so we have our script actually done, and we can just save it, and then we can turn it into an actual script that runs. Like I said, leave lots of space when you do this, because it makes it so much easier to read later. Extra lines in the script that don't have anything on them don't cost you anything in memory usage or the speed that the script is actually executed. So that is one of the reasons I do it this way. Now, sometimes I'll squeeze things together when it's a bunch of commands that do one thing. The main point is to make it so that you know what the code that you're putting in there is doing when you come back to it. Because, like, if you come back to edit the script tomorrow, you're probably going to know what it is. If you do this and then you come back 6 months or a year from now and you're trying to change something, you might not necessarily remember what you were trying to do or how you were trying to accomplish it. So once we get that done, we're going to save it, and we'll just call it hello. And you can put .sh on a script if you like. I usually don't do that because the way I do it, it becomes just an integrated command with everything else on the system. But the sh just basically tells you it's a script if you want to put it there. I will do that if I am using a script or writing a script that's not going to be installed on the system or live someplace where it becomes part of the command path. We'll talk more about that in a minute. We're just going to call this one hello, and we've saved it. So let me go ahead and get out of that, and we'll see that it's here, and there it is. So the next thing that we need to do, and by the way, that Dell screencast is the video I'm recording, is we need to make this an executable script. We need to turn it into a program. And the way to do that is to use change mode, and I always get that M and O reversed when I use it. And we're going to put in 755, which is simply going to make it executable for you and anybody else who can see the script. And we'll get in, I'm not going to get into what I did there. I'm just going to do it. And that's covered in other videos. You can always, run man, change mod, learn how to do that yourself, or you can look it up online. So what this is basically going to do is it's going to make it executable. And we're going to do it on that file, which is hello. And if I ls one more time, you notice that in my terminal that it changes color because that color tells me that we're looking at an executable file. So let's run it and see if it works. Now remember, it's supposed to clear the screen, print hello world. That's all it's supposed to do. So let's see what happens when we run it. Now I have to tell it that it's in the current directory and use that to tell the system that I actually want to run it from here, because it is not in an official place where you ordinarily run programs from. And so I have to specifically tell the system where it is. The dot stands for the current directory. That's what that is. So let's run it. Well, it seemed to work. It printed hello world, cleared the screen, and returned me to a prompt. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. So whatever commands I put in there, I can make it work. Of course, that's silly how stupid easy that is. Now, once we have our script written and we know that it's working, the next question that you have to ask yourself is, where do you want to put it? And when you create your own programs or you compile your own programs from source code or whatever, there are two official places to put it in a Linux distribution where that's supposed to go. The first one is if you create your own bin directory in your home directory, then it goes there. So let's talk a little bit about that. I'm going to cd out, I'm going to ls, I'm going to show you all the crap that's in my home directory. You notice that I have a directory in here that's called bin, lowercase bin. And if we go into bin and we list what's in there, I have a bunch of scripts in there. And the way it works in Ubuntu and Debian is that when you create your own bin directory, it looks for that. And once it sees it, it adds it as the first thing in your path that is set up in your environment where the system looks for programs to execute. So let's actually take a look at that path statement. Okay, so I'm telling the system now, please tell me what's in a variable called path. And you'll notice that the very first thing that is on here is home Joe bin, because I have a bin directory, and then it goes to user local sbin and user local bin, and it goes on and on. And this is places where different kinds of executable programs are placed on a Linux system. And you can put your scripts in one of two places. If you are the only person that's going to use it, then you could put it in bin, right? But if you want your script that you've written to be available for everybody else, then you can put that script in another directory called user local bin. And if you put it there, that is it'll be available to everybody. That's the point I'm trying to make. It's in everybody's path. There's user local bin right there. And the rest of it is when you're doing things like in user bin and user sbin, those are managed by the package manager in the system. And so you really shouldn't be putting stuff in there because an update might remove it or take it away. So there you go. So in our case, where are we going to put our little program? We're going to put it, let's move, let's see, HE. We're going to put that into the current directory because we're already in there. So that's how we would do that, right? So here goes. So let's see if it showed up. Yes, there it is. So now, let me go back to my home directory. If I type in hello, it runs from anywhere I'm at and it will automatically find it. I don't have to specifically tell the system how it works. That, ladies and gentlemen, is all there is to writing a script. It can be anything from something as stupid simple as like, let me show you probably the simplest script that I have in the system, because I have a bunch of really super easy ones. So let's go back into my bin directory, list them, and see what we're going to look at here. Let us look at, SSHIn. Let's look at that. So I'm going to go ahead and do nano, and we're going to open that up. And as you can see, it's literally one command. It's almost too short to be a script. I could set this as an alias if I wanted to, but I don't like alias as much as I like writing small scripts like this. Now what this does is that if I type in the command SSHIn and then I put the last two digits of the computer that's on the network that I'm trying to get into, then what it does is it connects me using this command right here. That's all it does. And actually, this part right here doesn't even need to be here because the way I have this written now, the X forwarding is always on. But it doesn't matter. You get the point. Because it used to be, when I first started this, that if you added X to the end of the command, that it would put you in X forwarding, and then I decided it was simpler just to leave it on all the time. Doesn't matter. This is something that's purely mine anyway. It's not for any other, it's not for mass consumption. So I don't care if it's perfect or not, as long as it works, right? So there you go. That is scripting. So let's talk a little bit about some of the other scripts that I have available. You can find these by going to EzeeLinux.com and going to page bash scripts and scrolling down, and there's videos and introductions to each one, and you can take a look at them. So what I need to do to jump in to start showing you scripts is to go to, let's see, what am I doing? CD, that don't make sense at all. Back up. CD, documents, I'm going to go to scripts, and I want to go to get projects because I manage all of this with a program called Git, that when I make changes, I can upload them to GitHub, and it keeps track of the changes and the revisions and everything that I do to them. So let's see what's in here. How many projects do I have available for you to download? Well, I have this thing called pre-shrink VM, which really isn't much to that. That's probably one that I won't show you. Let's take a look at a little program called show. How's that? So we'll jump in here. And let's open that up. And I'll show you the code, and then I'll tell you what it does. Show is a stupid little program that basically displays a text file on the screen, or it can do more than one text file in a row. So that is what is here. It's the description up top. Looks for the help argument. Okay. And then it, you have to give it a file name to work with, if it doesn't get one, it will spit out an error. So that's the first thing that happens there. And we have a function here called display. And what this does is it just essentially clears the screen. What I wanted when I wrote this was a program that would give me a terminal with no blinking cursor that I could display text on, and it would just be text in a terminal. So what it does is it first turns the cursor off right there, and then it adds 3 blank lines with echo, echo, echo 3 times. And then it uses a program, the columns there, it sets the columns, get number of columns in terminal emulator window. Okay, that's what that's doing. What it does is it checks the environment to see how big the terminal is, and then it gets a number for it to work with later on and puts it into a variable called COLS, which is short for columns. And then we use a program called fold right there, and it adds the columns there, how wide it should be, right here is where we're talking about. And then it goes to a variable called file. And then essentially what it does is it goes through and sees how many of these variables that I have, how many files I've given it. That's how it's executing. So it goes down and it does that. And let's see, let's go down here and look at the execution, because now down here at execution, you'll see, first of all, it looks for the help page, and if it doesn't get a help page, then it runs this command, which basically grabs all of the arguments and throws them into a do command, which tells it to display it, which is the function that we have above, and then when it gets done, it says it's done. And then once it's done, it says there aren't no more files to work with. That's just a little warning that's telling you you're getting ready to go back to a blank screen. Once you're done with all your files and you hit any key to go back again, what you get is your cursor turned back on and it clears the screen. So that's how show works. So let us Control X to get out of Nano, and let's do something fun here. This is how, let's do a push D. If I can type it in correctly, and we're going to move to work, which is where we were working before, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to use our script with show. So we're going to show hello. No, I moved it there, didn't I? So pop D. Let's push D again. But this time let's go to Ben. Now let's do this. We're going to show. Oh, this is great. So I can do a couple here. So we're going to show hello, and then we'll show SSHIn. Now remember, scripts are just text files, so it should work fine with show. And also let's show, what else do I have in here? Let's do the sync all, because I want to talk about that at some point in this script. So I have all 3 of those files, and watch what happens when I hit enter. Clears the screen, and now it shows us the script that we were looking at. So I can sit here and talk about it, and I can highlight things as I show it to you, and then I can press enter, and it goes to the next file, clears the screen, and it loads that command in that we just saw, right? We'll go to the next one. Well, now we have one that's like too long, but what it does is it loads it to the bottom, so you have to scroll back up to get to the top of that particular one. So this is a script that I have in here called sync all, and there you go. It shows it. Now if I hit it again, I get that warning. This tells you, as a person who's presenting something on the screen, hey, if you press this again, you're going to be out of this, and now it dumps you back to the original prompt. So that's how show works. It's available. You can download it if you want to. So let's see. Let's go back up here to let's see. Let's do this. CD. We can just go back up here and get that back because that's where I want to be. We want to list what's in there. What else do we want to talk about? Well, we've already talked about up in great detail, so let's talk about XBT. And XBT is the mother of all bash scripts. This was a project that I started around, oh Lord, I guess about June of 2017. I started on XBT. XBT started out as 4 or 5 lines. That's all it was. And it grew and it grew and it grew. And I did a video about it, and some people out in the community picked up on it and decided that they were going to contribute a bunch of code. And so let's just go in here and take a look at it. Okay, so let's see what's in here. XBT has a lot of components to it. You can see that. Let us do something a little bit different. Let's do gedit, and then I'm going to do XBT, and I am going to actually put this in the background so that we can get back to our terminal. That's the command that you use to do that. This is how you would launch a GUI application from a terminal and not lose functionality in the terminal. So there you go. I opened it up. Let's go back to the terminal and take a look at what I've got in there. See how it's telling me that there are 2 jobs running in this terminal? That's because I have 2 versions of gedit running. Let's full screen that. Let's make it, we're going to make it so it fills the screen so everybody can see it. XBT is huge. So what XBT does, it's a backup utility. And the idea is to make keeping very accurate backups of your home directory super easy to do. This one was actually written for my mom to use. And my mom is in her 70s. And believe it or not, kids, my mom does a few things in a terminal. And she is the most computer literate person I know. She wants to know what she needs to know to get things done and nothing more. Okay? But she runs some things in the terminal. So anyway, the idea behind XBT is that you take a USB drive and you dedicate this for your backup. And you can do it for all of your machines on your network. XBT will happily work with more than one machine. So you plug this drive in, you run the setup utility in XBT. It sets the drive up in just the right way for it to work with it. Make sure that it's what it needs to be. And then from that point on, you plug that drive in, you open XBT, and you run it. And then when you run XBT, you make this perfect snapshot backup of all of the stuff in your system. Then you can take that drive and plug it into another machine on your network, and you can do the same thing. And it will actually keep those backups separated and everything. Now, XBT is made to be accessible to where it stores the backup files in an open format. It just creates a copy on the external drive. But it keeps all the original permissions. Everything is exactly the same. And you can go in there and drag and drop files out of it. You can modify it. You can screw it up. The next time that you run that, it's going to fix it. It's going to be an exact copy. There's a restore function in XBT where you can do an emergency restore and put everything back to the way it was last time you did a backup. And there's several other things that this program does. So let's just scroll down through it real quick. This is, like I said, we have moved beyond a simple bash script here to being a program in and of itself. And the first thing that XBT does is that it goes and it makes sure that other programs are installed. This is the most wonderful little piece of code. This line right here, I picked this up off of some website somewhere where this guy had written this. And essentially what this does is it looks for any program that you want to make sure is installed on the system. And if it is not there, then it installs it. That's it. So when you first run XBT, if any of these necessary programs that it depends on aren't there, it will install them automatically. It's just done. Now these are things that are in the repositories for every Linux distribution. So we're not going outside and grabbing crazy stuff. This is just stuff that should be there to begin with. If it isn't, the program's not going to work properly. And that just double checks that it's there. So we set some variables. Like I said, we're not going to get too deep into this because the first thing that we have is the function called backup, and this is what actually does the backups. Verifies the drive there. There's a lot going on here, gang. It just uses rsync to actually move the data over, and it does it in such a way that if it gets an error the first time around, it does it again and generates different. It generates a log when it runs here, so it keeps up with exactly what it's doing. So this is the backup. See how long that is? That's a huge if statement in there. It's a huge nested if in there. So that is right there. Just the right there. That part is just the function that does the backup. So I got distracted there because I was looking at it trying to figure out what I was looking at. Anyway, so now we have another function here that we're going to use called Restore. That does the reverse of what backup does. If you actually want to look at this, like this is available, you can take a look at it. The next function that we have here is this is the one that was the hardest for me to get done. This was extremely difficult. The setup drive function. As a matter of fact, a lot of this code was not written by me. A lot of this code was contributed by Jody at the OB Revenge project. He came up with this, and I essentially copied it pretty much verbatim for the setup drive here. Of course, I added the different dialogues and texts that you see here, but this is pretty intense stuff. So basically what it does is any USB drive that you plug into the machine, it will identify it, it will allow you to choose if there's more than one, and then it will format that drive. First of all, it blanks the drive off to make sure that it, starting from scratch, gets rid of all the old file systems, and then it actually creates its own format. Basically, it sets up ext4 on the drive, and it uses parted to do that. And the only downside to this is that the setup utility in XBT will only work with drives that are 2 gigabytes. So anything above that, you're going to have to partition it and set it up by hand manually. And it's in the documentation how to do that. So we're still into this setup drive here, and we get out of that. And then the next is the menu. It's a menu-driven program. As you can see, this is how the menu works. And it uses a case menu to do this. Pretty sure that's how I set it up. Yes. So you see, we tell people what the menu is, and then we have some other things that run there, and then we get down here, and yes, it's a case menu. So essentially, we set a case where if they press 1, it opens up backup, because that's what we want it to do. If you press 2, then it does restore. 3 sets up the drive. 4 opens up the help. 5 lets you to read the log. 6, when you do that, just clears everything and it makes it so it reloads. And then 0 is actually an exit command. It says goodbye and stuff like that. So there's the help function. See, we're still loading functions. We're not even halfway down this. So this goes on and on and on. Some folks are out there, their eyes are glazing over going, why is this guy doing this? Well, some people are interested. This is how the logs work, how you can read the logs. And then there's the actual execution, and we go to the execution section of the program. This is actually all of the code that executes when XBT runs. Everything above line 669 is just loaded into memory when you start the program, and then it actually starts to run, and this is where it happens. So when you get to line 670, then it actually runs. And it starts looking for the options that you can put in, because you can run this from a command line as well as just click on it. And there you go. It's just unbelievable. So if I get out of this, it should dump me back in my terminal, which it does. You notice that there are other files in here. We have the XBT program is actually distributed in a deb package, so you can install it on Ubuntu and Debian, or you can just drag XBT into one of those directories I showed you, user local bin or bin. You can run it that way. Or you can do a full install on it, and when you do a full install on XBT, it makes it work. So let me demonstrate XBT, because I did a backup this morning, and this just shouldn't take long. Actually, it may throw an error because I'm recording video, but we'll see what happens. It doesn't, well, even if it doesn't throw an error, that's interesting. Because if a file is open and being written to, sometimes it can't write it, and it'll go, well, I don't know what I'm doing with that. So I just plugged in my backup drive, and you notice it's called XBT drive. And then to start XBT, well, I have it over here in my favorites. And so we're going to go through all the options. So the first one is backup, and it asks for your, I guess we can go ahead and make this, let's run it full screen so everybody can see what's going on here. Make this bigger. Yeah, so here's XBT running in the full screen. So I have already put in there, let me put my password in. It may not take it because I was executing everything. Now it's running the backup, and it goes through and tells us each one of the files that it's working on as it goes through. Basically, what it's backing up now is Google Chrome cache. This is stuff that's changed since I backed it up early this morning. There it was trying to copy that. Actually, I think it copied it and went through. And now it copies hello. And now it is scanning the timeshift directory, which actually might take it a couple of minutes because on this system right now I am saving timeshift snapshots in the home directory, and that means they get backed up every time. So that might take it a second to scan through that. We'll wait patiently and talk about it. How you doing? You enjoying the video so far? Yeah, it's pretty cool actually. I'm enjoying it too. Now it's done. It says XBT has successfully completed, and it gives you a time, and all of this is written to the log. Now it is syncing the drive, which means that before the program exits, it makes sure that all of this stuff is written to the XBT drive. And that is done simply because of the fact that if it's sitting in memory and you'd reach down and pull your USB cable out, then it would mess it up. So the restore function would take what we just did and throw it right back on. Okay. Not gonna. Well, I can launch that, and it's gonna say, "Do you really want to do this?" And the default answer is no. So we're not getting into that. So if you want to look at the help page, just type in, well, the setup XBT drive. I can click that, and it's going to give me a warning. Of course, it's not. Let's see if I do this like this. Hold on just a second, gang. Yes, I know I'm putting the wrong thing in. I'm making that a little smaller so it will display properly. Thank you very much. So if you just hit a key and it's the wrong thing, it'll tell you that you hit the wrong thing and it'll reset. So that's what you were looking at there. Okay. So what were we doing? We were looking at setup drive, but it rendered funny. So I decided to, now it looks the way it's supposed to. So it wants to really make sure you want to do this, and we don't. So we'll get out of it, because that will delete your entire USB drive there. It starts over from scratch. And if you want to look at the log file, just hit number 5, and then it will display the log, and the latest one shows up. Let's see, how did I have this done? Yeah, so as you can see, the latest one shows up at the bottom, so it gives you the last few that are done. That's what happens when you get an error. As you can see in here, it will list the errors, and if it does come across an error, what this will do is it will run again. It'll actually run twice, and then if it runs after 3 passes, if it still has errors, it'll exit and tell you, hey, you got errors, You need to look at the log and see what they are. So it tries to, somebody asked me what happens if a file is being written to or it disappears or whatever. That's what happened about XBT the other day. So the refresh, basically, I'll give you a little secret. If you hit refresh, it just refreshes the page. That's all it does. Or you can do exactly the same function by just hitting anything besides a number. Just did the same thing. So, little secret there. And then you can exit XBT by hitting a 0. And when you exit XBT, it closes out the terminal. So you can also run XBT from the terminal. So we'll show you how to do that real quick. So some people wanted this functionality. So you got XBT, and then you got backup. So we'll do another backup. And this time around, it doesn't stop to display the menu and all that stuff. It's just going to run straight through. It's going to do it. And we've got more video on our screencast there. That's why it's stopping to do that. So what it's basically doing here, it'll run back through, and when it's done, it's just going to exit. Now, if it runs into an error, it's going to revert back to the menu to give you options. So that is XBT in a nutshell, and that is how XBT works. We can also open up the help page from here in case you want to know what the different commands do. That's how you do that right there. And you can scan through and read help. When you're done, Q gets you out. So there you go, gang. That is a look at all of the bash scripts plus a bash script tutorial. This particular video, you got a lot of bang for the buck, man. I showed you a lot of really cool stuff here. When you're done with your drive, make sure that you safely remove the drive. When it's done, make sure I unplug the drive and not the microphone, because I have the microphone plugged in right next to where the drive is on the front of the machine. That would suck if I unplugged the microphone. As always, your feedback is welcome. Links to the video I mentioned in the beginning of this video and the bash script page on EzeeLinux are going to be in the description for this video, and also I'll put a link in there for my GitHub page as well. So anybody who wants to go look around, you can take a look at that, and always enjoy your input as far as that stuff is concerned as well. So how do you interact with EzeeLinux if you're new to this? Well, you can look at EzeeLinux.com. I have a contact page there. That sends me an email, so I'll get your message. And then we have EzeeTalk, which is a forum that we host. And when I say we, I'm talking about the EzeeLinux project. Me and a few other people who volunteer to be moderators in the group, and our chief engineer, Mr. Jeremy O'Connell, who does all of this building for us. He's at CyberWeb Solutions. You can go check our little work of art out over there. That is secure, and it's free, and it's not run by any big mega corporation that can see your data. It's just us. It's run on our own server, and we have complete control over it. And then we have a Facebook page, which continues to grow, even though some people in the Linux community hate Facebook. If you do use Facebook, come by and check us out. It's EzeeLinux, and there's a lot of discussion and talk that goes on over there, and I tend to post pretty much daily on the Facebook page. So that's one good way to keep up with what's going on. So that's it. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and that's about it, gang. Talk to you again soon.